since 2013, which was actually the first instance that happened in Rwanda, I think there was that excitement that came over being able to host that type of event in Kigali. And I believe the trail of excitement brought forward different stakeholders that came to Rwanda to discuss about how we can transform Africa and make it well connected. So during those editions, and I believe the 2013 one was the one that actually was like the booster for Rwanda to pick up and then move forward. And the good aspect of it was that we had different discussions and different stakeholders coming together and then having bilateral meetings to be able to maybe come to fruition with different aspects of resolutions that came forward. So the interesting part of it was different organizations, whether from the private sector and the government, sat down and they started to believe that it could be possible to be built that way. And they started putting into place different policies and different partnerships to bring that forward. Subsequently, it brought Transform Africa 2015, and whereby infrastructure-wise, it was not yet there because at that time there wasn't an adequate place for Transform Africa to be host to that level. But it became better in terms of organization, even in terms of stakeholders that came forward. Different companies were interested because they were seeing Africa and they were seeing Rwanda being at the forefront of that drive. And I believe after that 2015, that's where we started seeing different aspects of it being put into place. For example, some of the smart application being put forward, some of the local solutions being put forward together so that citizens can benefit from it. And as we can see now, it has grown to the extent whereby Transform Africa is now like the mother of all these different areas, initiatives that is bringing it forward. You have these startups that are bringing different solutions, such as robotics-oriented solutions, or you have the likes of Fab Lab, right. You have data scientists, you have even universities that are coming forward because they're seeing that Rwanda is promoting quite active into it. Area. And it's bringing fruitful in the sense that we have now more startups that are actually looking for homegrown solutions, and I think that's what BA has made in Rwanda, and I believe it's extending to other parts of Africa.
Right. How do you think that, like you said, there's a lot of initiatives that have come out of an event like this, and it's sort of become the mother. But we have these discussions that happen each time a Transform Africa event happens. But with all of these discussions and with all of these resolutions that could be coming out of it, do we have the infrastructure to really grow this this ICT sector the way that Rwanda wants to and the way that the continent wants to?
I believe we do. From a service provider perspective, we do have infrastructure that is being built. Let's start maybe from the border. We have this fiber infrastructure that the government has put into place, has invested into, I think, for the last 10 years. And this infrastructure, first of all, brings internet capacity in our country from the border and all the way from submarine cable. So we have that capacity coming in, and then from there we have now different stakeholders, whether in private or government, that are able to build infrastructure for it. Let's say from a private sector perspective, you have this fiber being laid down that is even still being laid down in different districts of the country. And that is actually getting to some of the institutions at the government level. Even some of these companies are able to extend their reach, for example, the likes of MTN or Liquid Telecom or even BAC or other stakeholders. You find that with that aspect of infrastructure getting to a citizen down in the countryside or down at maybe the district or the cell level, for example, they are able to get to that capacity either via their mobile phone or via another type of technology that they use every day, and now they're able to get to that capacity. And I believe that infrastructure is actually fostering other companies to build more content-oriented service. For example, you have different companies having storage servers or having, let's say, content that people can access locally, maybe through some portal, and I believe it's growing with that. So I think the challenge now becomes what are we going to do with that data? So we need to maybe to build more data center, we need to harbor all that, and then we also need to have more literate people being able to understand how to actually use that.
Right. You know, I hear you saying that a lot of efforts are being made and the infrastructure is spreading and growing quite a bit, but internet penetration is still quite low, especially continent-wide. And as you said, things are happening, but how can we sort of go around this problem that we're having in terms of penetration and still grow the sector the way that we want to?
I believe the main aspect is actually being able to help a citizen who's not computer literate to be able to use a service without needing to understand or being tech savvy to a certain extent. So I would say, for example, if we can use, let's say, an automated process or artificial intelligence to be able to break down some of the routines that a person has to go through so that he doesn't have to think a lot. Maybe if he needs to use his phone or her phone to actually maybe automate or maybe get a service from Irembo, for example, or another type of requirement from an institution, they don't have to really think a lot. They just need to have a system that is going to help them to do it automatically for them. And they just have to think of how they can maybe use the payment system in place to actually being able to get there. And then maybe increase the awareness of how we can use some of the solutions we have maybe at a less tech savvy way so that people can understand that they need to use the computer a certain way. Maybe they can start to use a visual electronic boards, for example, that can maybe help people to use their senses and then use their touch to be able to interact with the systems in a more efficient way. I believe with that, people will be more knowledgeable and will be more, and internet penetration and even ICT service penetration will also increase.
Right. This year's theme for the event is boosting Africa's digital economy. What do you think is going to be the main conversation coming out of this event as a solution for that?
Perhaps I believe understanding first these new technologies that we have, let's say cryptocurrency, blockchain. Sometimes it can feel like scientific, mathematical, formulas that people look at it and they're like, what's happening? So they wonder what could come out of that because they don't understand much what is it. So I think understanding those technologies, how they work, understanding how data on top of that is going to work, because if data is digitalized, then you have data having no boundaries, and if not, that data is transferred over a channel which is encrypted or something that doesn't require necessarily a regulation that is 100% accurate.